Hello and happy Friday. Welcome to Coffee Break. My name is Angela, and today we're going to be talking about calendar events in Mylio Photos. These are virtual organization that you can overlay on the calendar view to make those most important events in your life easy to find. Before we jump into today's topic, I do want to let you know about some of the other things we have going on for you. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we have live Q&A. These are Ask Me Anything sessions where you can pop in and ask questions, and you get to know me. You get to learn about photography, photo organization, family history, really anything that you want to ask that's even remotely Mylio adjacent, you can ask. So those are Tuesday, Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. I really hope you'll join me for that. Next week for Coffee Break, we are going to be talking about the Mylio organization blueprint. So I'm going to come up with a workflow that you can use to make your life simpler and to maintain and keep your library organized as you move forward. This is one of the things that we hear a lot from people who are just coming into Mylio Photos. They're stuck knowing how to move forward. So we're going to come up with a system that you can implement in your day-to-day life to make these things easier and simpler. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into our presentation for today and talk about calendar events. And I really feel like this is the missing piece in your photo organization because it's something that a lot of people don't realize how to use and don't realize just how fun it is to implement in your library. It just makes finding those most important moments so much easier. So today what we're going to do is cover what calendar events are. I'll show you how to create them, how to find and manage them later on, and where to start so you don't feel like you're overwhelmed. And that's one thing that I think a lot of us struggle with is we have massive libraries spanning many, many years. You look at a calendar and try to go, okay, where do I start with events? So I'll walk you through how to get that started. So first off, what do calendar events do? They are an organizational overlay that adds structure without changing your file system. It's virtual organization, kind of similar to albums, but it's either date-based or folder-based. And it groups all of the photos from either that specific date range or a specific folder and puts it into a clickable link on your calendar. We call that an event bar. So when you see those bars that appear over your calendar, we call those event bars. And it instantly allows you to click on it and view all the associated media with that event. Again, this is virtual organization. It doesn't duplicate your photos. It doesn't move anything in your file system. This is exclusive to Mylio. So you're not going to see calendar events anywhere else. This is going to be something that you enjoy specifically in Mylio. All right, so one of the reasons that I do encourage people to create calendar events beyond just the joy of browsing is it affects what we call photo prioritization. If you've ever wondered how Mylio chooses what pictures to feature as cover photos, what pictures are featured on your calendar, and so forth, certainly you can go in and choose custom cover photos for a lot of things, but in the calendar especially, it is all run by what we call photo prioritization. And that's a series of things under the hood in Mylio that tells Mylio what is the most important to you. And events play very, very heavily in that. So how you rank your events really determines which events appear on your calendar. It also, if you haven't customized a cover photo for a folder or an album, it plays into that. And it also plays into sync priority. So this is a really big deal when you're customizing the look and feel of your Mylio Photos library. I want to show you something really quick in Mylio here before we go any further, just about that photo prioritization. If you go up to the More menu in the upper right, which is those three dots, go down to Settings, and then I believe it is under Organization and Photo Prioritization. This is where you can see how Mylio is prioritizing where things come from when it's showing you different things in your library. So you can see here at the top, event priority is the number one thing, and you can't even change that. That is the top factor for how Mylio determines what you think is important. So if you create an event and tell Mylio that's a priority event, it will prioritize those pictures automatically. And then you can go ahead, these other ones here that have these little handles, you can drag and drop those to change the priority level. So if you never use flags, you can move that down to the bottom of the list. And maybe you use yellow tags, you can move that up to the top. So you can choose all of that. You might also, if you're going to really leverage into events, what you choose is your event cover. You might want to bring that up to the top too. So I'm actually going to bring that up to the very top And you can restore the defaults and see what Mylio suggests, or you can make this very much your own. So photo prioritization really impacts a lot of stuff in Mylio Photos. And I think that's going to be a really good benefit if you're not already using events, why you might want to start. So let's talk about how to create an event. It's really pretty simple. You can do it a few different ways, and you can do it really from anywhere in Mylio Photos. So as I mentioned before, events are based on either a date range or they're based on a specific folder. So I'm going to show you how to do both, and we're going to talk about those different settings throughout this presentation. But first, let's go ahead and start from creating an event anywhere in Mylio. I'm going to go ahead and do this from the All Photos section. And let's see here. On this particular day, I went out to the Anza Borrego Desert with some friends and with my husband. I'm going to go ahead and select all of those images. So I just clicked the first one, held down the Shift key, and clicked the last one. And I'm going to right click on that and say Add to New Event. And that's going to pop this up, and I can go ahead and adjust that date, start time, and date and end range. And what this is doing is it's looking at the metadata in my pictures. So it's taking those timestamps from those photographs, and that's how it predetermined this. Now I can change it. I can adjust what's going on there. And then from there, I would go ahead and add in a name. Let's see, Anza Borrego trip. And I can put a description if I like. And we'll talk more about some of these other options in a bit. But really, that's how easy it is from anywhere in your library, it doesn't have to be all photos, to select a group of related images, right click on it and say Save Event or Add to Event. Very, very, very simple. And this is great for trips, weddings, performances, photo shoots, anything that is kind of time bound. You want to make sure it's something that doesn't really span more than a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, I would say is probably the most I would use for an event. If it's longer than that, there are other organizational tools that I would use in Mylio, but anything that is really time bound is a really great candidate for using events. All right, from the calendar, if you're in the calendar view already and you're going through and you see on the calendar a group of images and you're like, oh, I remember on that date I went to this place. Over in the info panel, there's a little plus icon here in events if you've got that open, or if you're just looking at the sidebar, you've got this little calendar icon with the plus up in the right. You can use that to create a new event based on what you have selected in the calendar. So let me show you that really quick. I'm going to jump over here to Mylio, and I'm actually going to go ahead and cancel this for the moment, and we'll jump over to the calendar view. And from here, I can go ahead and go into 2026, and I believe that was towards the end of January, February. I don't remember exactly what day it was I did that. Let's see here. Not that date. That date. Okay, so on this particular date is the date that I went out to Anza Borrego. Got a picture here in the back of my camera remote that I really don't want included. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and delete that because that was just, that little device was malfunctioning. So I took a picture of it so I could zoom in. Those are sometimes the kinds of things that you find in your library that you don't actually need to keep. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit delete and get rid of that. So that way I'm focused in on those pictures that are actually from that particular trip. Now from there, I can go ahead and grab that particular day. You can see it's got the blue highlight around it. And I can click that little add event icon there in the right sidebar. If you've got the info panel open as well, you can click the plus here. And again, what that's going to do is it's going to use the metadata that is in that particular range of images and add that here as your event date. And then you add your name and your description and so forth. So adding an event from the calendar, super, super easy. And sometimes doing it from the calendar is the easiest way because you're browsing through and you go, oh, that was the date we went to this, or that was so-and-so's wedding, or somebody's birthday or anniversary. So you can kind of visualize those events a little easier and grab them and save them in that way. And then finally, you can do this from a folder. And this is one that I think is really kind of hidden. A lot of people don't realize you can do. If your organization is such that you're putting everything from a single event into a folder, that is a really cool, easy way to create an event. So you can go ahead and jump over to your folder view. Let me go ahead and close out of that. And I'm going to go over to my folders. And let's say we've got this event here. I went to a photo workshop in Chicago, and I can go ahead and scroll down to the bottom here and say show folder as calendar event. Now to locate that, what you're going to do is you're going to click on a specific folder in folder view, open up the info panel, and scroll down to the very bottom. And you'll see this toggle for show folder as a calendar event. And when I go ahead and click that, you'll notice it adds a new section here called event. And I can go ahead and add my title, my description, and all of those other things. And that will show as an event bar in my calendar. So if all of your pictures from a specific event are in one folder, that is a really quick and easy way to create events. And a lot of people don't even realize that's there. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of extra information. This is really helpful for things that you have for travel. If you are, say, a working photographer, or you're using Mylio for some sort of work and you have client jobs, being able to put those onto the calendar as calendar events can be very useful as well. And again, anything that has a project with a defined start and end date. I do not recommend using events for things like family history as a general massive project. Now, using it for other milestones that are you're cataloging in your family history, so births, deaths, weddings, anniversaries, absolutely mark those as calendar events. But don't take your entire family history and say that's a calendar event, because that's going to span years and decades and is ultimately not going to be very functional in the terms of navigating your calendar. So make sure it has a defined start and end date when you're creating these events. And then also know that when you toggle this switch, again, it's looking at the metadata for the pictures that are inside that folder, and that is the date range that's going to be selected. So again, if I go back to this, it's showing here for August 10. And if I go down and look at this, the dates for that particular event and where it shows on my calendar will be associated with the metadata from the pictures in that particular folder. All right, another way that you can add events, I do not recommend this, but I'm going to go over it because it's something that's in our application and it is helpful for some people. That is linking a digital calendar. So first off, if you want to link a digital calendar, if you're on Mac, it must be a calendar that's visible in the Apple Calendar app. If you're on Windows, it's a calendar that must be visible in Microsoft Outlook. And if you're on a phone or a tablet, it has to be connected to the native calendar app. And most, whether you're using Google, you're using Outlook, there's so many different email and calendar services out there these days. You just have to connect those to the native app on your device, and then they will be visible in Mylio and you can turn them on. So I'll go into Mylio here in a second and show you that toggle. But the reason I suggest proceeding carefully with this is it can easily turn your life calendar in Mylio into absolute chaos. I don't know about you, but I tend to put a lot of stuff on my calendar. Everything from meetings with for work. I have personal things. I have doctor's appointments. I have taking my cat to the vet. I have getting together with friends, all sorts of things. I would say about 5% of the things on my calendar are things that I actually want to show up in Mylio. But there is no way to just pick and choose. It will take everything in that calendar and it will put everything onto the life calendar in Mylio. And there is no undo. Just let me reemphasize that. There is no way to undo that action. The only way to get rid of all of that extraneous stuff off of your calendar is to go event by event and delete them one by one. So please take this very carefully. Consider this with caution. If you have a separate calendar that you keep all of those kind of family events on, and those are the ones that you want to add, by all means, link that to Mylio. It may be a great time saver for you. But for me, it caused chaos, and I want to warn you from that because I've seen other people, it happen to other people, and I don't want that to happen to you because it's a mess to clean up. But if you do want to do it, what you're going to do is go up here to the More menu, and you're going to go down to Settings, and you're going to go to Life Calendar. There's an option here for linked calendars. It's going to look at your system calendars. Like I said, if you're on Mac, it's looking at my Apple calendars. If you're on Windows, it's going to look at Outlook. If you pull this up on a phone, it's going to look at your native calendar app. And it's going to show you all of the different calendars that you currently have available. And you can toggle those on if you want to. Just be prepared that it's going to bring in a lot of stuff and you may have some cleanup to do. So please take that with a bit of caution. All right, so let's talk about customizing events, because this is where this gets fun and I think even more useful for a variety of situations. underneath each event, when you set up a new event, you have event details. So first off, the cover photo. You want to choose this wisely because this is what's going to prominently feature in your library. If you think back to a moment ago when I talked about photo prioritization and having that cover photo for the event, that's what's going to be featured in your life calendar. If you haven't set custom pictures for covers of albums or covers of folders, this is the picture that's going to be prioritized in all of those things. So pick your cover photo wisely, and you can always go back and change it. So if you ended up just kind of setting it up and you didn't pick one intentionally at first, don't stress about that. You can always change it later, but know that whatever cover photo you have for an event impacts a lot of different things. Then you can go ahead and change your event date, the event name, and the description. So in order to change the cover photo when you're setting it up, you see the cover photo here. You click on this little pencil icon here in the upper left, and that allows you to pick from any other picture that is part of that event. Next up, we have categories and priority. So categories, we've talked a lot about categories in Mylio over other sessions, and these are broad categories that you can use like work, family, and you can have up to, I think, 40 something custom categories in Mylio that you use for different purposes. If you want to apply a category such as family, or maybe it's a work event, maybe it's something else, you can go ahead and add that category to this. One thing to note is adding a category to an event is just applying that category to the event container. It does not inherit to the pictures that are inside of it. Unlike if you do it with a folder, folders have inheritance. So when you apply a category to a folder, everything inside that folder inherits that category. For events, that is not the case. You're just applying the category to the event itself. The next thing we want to talk about is that priority. And this also affects your prioritization inside of Mylio. And this lets you choose what kind of event is it. So let me go ahead and jump back over here to Mylio. And I'm going to go back to this group of images that I selected. We'll right click and say new event. And we're going to scroll down here to priority. In this list, you don't have to add a priority if you don't want to, but you can say it was an event of the day, event of the month, event of the year, or a life event. And I'm sure you can imagine this is how Mylio ranks these certain things. So if you have a list of various events that happen to be overlapping, the life event is going to show at the top, then the event of the year, the month, and the day. So that's also going to dictate what shows on the calendar depending on how zoomed in you are. If you're looking at the year and you had 2 events of the year, those are probably going to be showing in any of the smaller events that are labeled event of the month, event of the day, or unlabeled. Those ones might be hidden and only visible in the info panel depending on how many you have. So this also dictates a lot of how Mylio handles those things and how it displays different things in your library. So with this particular event, going out to the desert with some friends, I would say that was an event of the day, maybe an event of the month, but I'll call it an event of the day. And then I can go ahead and save that, and that's going to dictate how that appears. Just like going here with the picture, I can say, that's not the picture I want to use. Let's go ahead and change that to, let's go to that one. I like that picture, and say choose. And again, that's going to make it represent that particular event in my calendar. All right. And we did touch on this a little bit earlier, the scope by date or by folder. You'll notice here at the bottom, you have scoped by date or folder. One way to do the folder based is directly from folders view, where I showed you that you could toggle that one switch. But if you wanted to go ahead and change that and do it here in the setup, you can do that as well. So scope by date means it includes all of the media from the time frame you specify. If you do scope by folder, it only includes the media in that particular folder. So it appears on the calendar using the dates from the media inside that folder. You can choose either one. They're both relatively date-based. It's just a matter of how you're selecting the data. If you're in all photos view and you're pulling pictures from many different sources, go ahead and keep it scoped by date. If you're in the folders view and you're wanting to work with things that are in a specific folder, go ahead and do scoped by folder. If you do scoped by folder, it is going to limit to that specific folder. So if you have other pictures from other devices, let's say you've got your main organization, you pulled in some pictures from your big camera, those are in your main organization. and you choose that folder. But you might also have some pictures from, say, your mobile phone that are over here in the Apple Photos folder. Those would not be included if you do scoped by folder because it is specific to that one folder. All right, the next thing I want to go over is a power feature. And this is one of my favorites because this really curates what images you're seeing when you click on a specific event. So right now, if I go into this, and let's say let me go ahead and click and make this Anza Borrego event. And I've got my date range, I've got my name. I don't need a cat. Well, actually I went out there with some Darkroomers friends. That's my camera club. So let's go ahead and just say Darkroomers, event of the day. You can autoplay a slideshow. So when you click on an event, if you want it to automatically play a slideshow, you can turn that on. I'm gonna go ahead and just hit save. And then I'm gonna jump back over here to my calendar. And you can now see that I have that Anza Borrego event bar sitting there. If I go ahead and click on that, you'll see over here in the right, then I get all of my settings that I can go ahead and change and modify. And you can change these anytime. But if I go down here, here's one called Event Filter. And I really love this because right now I'm seeing all of the pictures from that date range, but maybe when I click on a calendar event, I only want to see the best stuff. So if I've gone through and I've said, okay, that's a 4-star and that's a 4-star. I think I really like these two images. Let me go ahead and make those 5 stars. There we go. So I've got some 4 stars and 5 stars. Maybe all I want to do is see those best photos when I'm looking at this particular event. So instead of keeping my event filter at none, what you can do is select a quick collection. And if you recall, a quick collection is a saved set of quick filters. So you can create a custom one, or we have some others in here that you can go ahead and use. And 4 and 5 stars is probably one of the best and easiest. So go ahead and select that. And then when you click on that event filter, you're only seeing the best images from that event. This is really great if you're wanting to pull out your phone and share the highlights from your vacation with one of your friends or family. They just want to see the best stuff. They don't want to see all 2,000 pictures of your trip. They just want to see the 40 that you've marked as 4 and 5 stars. And this is a really great way to filter that down and get to them very, very easily. So event filter is added after the fact. You have to create the event first. Once you've created it, go into the settings here in the info panel, and then you can go ahead and add that event filter. That I think is one of my favorite features in events by far. All right, we mentioned briefly autoplaying the slideshow. I don't typically use this, but I'm not a big slideshow inside of Mylio person. There are a lot of people who really love this feature. So if you want to go ahead and start a slideshow every time you open that particular event, go ahead and toggle that on. You can always go back into the settings and toggle it off later, but it's really good for sharing in presentations. All right, viewing and editing events. Again, I mentioned you can go into these settings and you can change these things anytime you want. So to view an event, what you're going to do is, let me go ahead and go back up to the top level, and I'm just going to close up some stuff here so we can have a nice clean view. You're looking at my entire life calendar, and you'll see all these little dots on my calendar. These are the priority events for those particular years. And if I go ahead and click into 2023 and open up my info panel here, you can scroll down and see there's far more events than we're showing on that one little thumbnail at the beginning. Again, that's your prioritization. So it's going to pick those life events and those events of the year to show you when you're in decade view. So if I go up a level, you're only seeing a couple. You can see there's a dot there. And there's far more events there than you can show on that one thing. There is a setting inside settings in Mylio where you can determine how many of those event bars show on any given thumbnail. Much more than 2 or 3 tends to look really cluttered. So that's why I have mine set like that. From here, what you do is you can go ahead and click on one of those event bars here, or you can click on it over here in the info panel. So let's say I want to see all of my pictures from the Oregon coast. There we go. And when I did this, you'll notice I have an event filter on for my 4 and 5 stars and flag. This is a custom quick collection that I created that shows anything that has a pick flag or has a 3 or 4 or 5 star rate, or actually should be 4 and 5 star. That's a 3 star. Oh, it's got a flag. That's why it's either flagged or it's a 4 and 5 star. So that's why it's limited to those. If I turn this off and just go up here and say none, you'll notice there's quite a lot more pictures there. So it's kind of the uncurated collection, if I want that curated version, I can go in here and I can choose either that custom one that I have, or I can just say 4 and 5 stars, and that limits it down to those very, very best images. But at any time, I can go in here and I can change any of those details. So maybe I want to change my event name. I want to add more information to this description. Any of these things can be changed. I can also go in here into my cover photo and I can change that as well. So maybe instead of using the one of Cannon Beach, let's go ahead and find something else here really quick. There's so many pictures from this trip though, that's kind of hard to do really quick. I want to find one of the, let's do like that. That one. So now I've changed my cover photo, and you'll notice if I go back up a level here, that's now the image that's representing that year's, because that trip I marked as definitely an event of the year, if not, and let's see, what did I do? Event of the year. So that's a pretty high priority. And I just changed the cover photo. So that's what's representing that whole year. So you can go in and curate those things and change it around to whatever works for you. All right. One more thing that I wanted to mention here was using search when you want to view an event. So you can go into the calendar view, tap the event bar. You can open up that info panel. You can also find events using dynamic search. So if you go into search up here at the upper left, oops, looks like somebody's, there we go. If you go into the search here in the upper left, click that, and I can just type in Oregon Coast. And that's going to go ahead and give me my photos, my folders, my places, and you can say, here's my events. There's that Oregon Coast again. There's that same cover photo we just chose. So you can search for it that way. The other thing you can do is when you're in folder view, or I'm sorry, calendar view, if you do a Command or Control F, that pulls up a find, and that lets you find an event. So if I want to find Central Coast, let's say, that's going to go ahead and highlight everywhere I have a Central Coast event. So it's just another way to kind of easily find things and get to the memories that you want to get to easily anytime that you want to. All right, editing event, we talked about that. You're going to right click on an event bar. You can so let me show you that really quick. If I go to any of these event bars, I can right click on it and choose edit event, or simply just click and open that event, have the info panel open, and you can go ahead and edit those details that way. It's very, very simple to change them and modify them after they've been created. So I've given you a lot of information. Now is where we go, where to start. I want to make this as simple as possible for you and minimize any overwhelm you have at this. So let's go ahead and start with those big, beautiful moments. The weddings, the graduations, major birthdays, big vacations, those huge things that jump out at you. It's like, I know I only have maybe 2 or 3 of those a year. Find those really big things and create those events. After that, then you can move on to things like weekend getaways, get-togethers with friends and family, annual traditions, school events, anything else like that. So start at the top and have like a funnel and just kind of go down. I do suggest avoiding using events for things that are long-term projects. So if you have things that span many months or those multi-year family history projects, events are not a great tool for that. But do use them in the context of family history for births and deaths, weddings, anniversary, and any other major family milestones that you want to have easily accessible. So the reason, coming back to the title of this, why events are the missing piece, is because it helps you organize by things that happen. Not just where the file lives, not by manually grouping them, but by what happened. It's those important milestones and moments in your life. It makes those important moments stand out with the photo prioritization. So by creating events, you're actually help curating what your library looks like, not just creating clickable things on your calendar. It's influencing what syncs first to different devices. It influences what comes up as cover photos and all sorts of different things in Mylio. So by taking the time to curate events, you're curating your entire library. Finally, the biggest reason I think anybody should use this is it helps you spend less time scrolling. If you've taken the time to create an event, it's easy to jump to the calendar and find those specific moments instead of having to sit there on your phone and scroll. So that makes it easy to find and enjoy the things that really matter. Just a reminder that we will have live Q&A next week on Tuesday and Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. These are Ask Me Anything sessions. You're welcome to drop in and ask me really anything that's even Mylio adjacent, anything photography related. Happy to do my best to answer. So we talk about all sorts of things. Everybody is welcome, whether you're brand new or you've been with us for a very long time. So I hope to see you there. Next Friday's coffee break, we're going to do the Mylio organization blueprint. And we're just going to talk about some common sense, simple workflows to keep things organized as you move along through Mylio. So with that, I want to wish you guys a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Lori, for all of your help in the chat. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.